Welcome back. I'm Christina Scalera from The Contract Shop, and today we're talking all about how to set up a stress-free LLC. LLC, of course, means limited liability company or limited liability corporation. This is typically the first kind of business entity that you'll create as a business owner. A lot of you are like, I'm already a sole proprietor. Well, maybe, but that's not a real thing. A sole prop doesn't do anything for you, neither does a DBA, as we are speaking legally. So all that those things do is maybe register your name somewhere, but legally speaking, you haven't actually created any separate business entity that can enter into its own contracts or work with its own clients, separate and apart from you personally, which means that if you are a sole proprietor or sole prop or a DBA, that you are operating what I call naked business. So you're running around in the streets all nudie and stuff, and we need to get you covered up. The best way to start putting some of those clothes on is with an LLC. An LLC effectively removes the liability from you as the business owner in your personal capacity and places it on whatever that new entity is. So you're literally giving birth to a new person in the eyes of the law, and it's your business. It's the easiest birth you'll ever give. I've never given birth before, but I'm assuming it's easier than an actual human birth. So today we're talking all about what the steps are that you need to set up this LLC so that it's stress-free. You don't have to worry about it anymore, and you just pop in and check in on it like once a year, make sure it's still there, it still exists, and I'll even show you a couple tips and tricks on what you can do with this new fun thing that you've created and birthed today. The first step to getting an LLC is to select what name you want to have. And the LLC, I think in every single state, requires that you actually have the phrase limited liability company or the initials LLC or some variation of those things in the actual name. So for example, my store, The Contract Shop, the LLC that owns that is called Christina Scalera Media LLC. As you'll notice, it's not called The Contract Shop LLC. I could have named it that, I just didn't. I don't know why, whatever. The name of your LLC does not matter. Your LLC can own multiple trademarks. I used to work for PepsiCo, which is a corporation. That's not important. But what is important is that you might recognize not the word PepsiCo, but things like Lay's potato chips or Doritos tortilla chips or Gatorade sports drink. Those are all trademarks that PepsiCo owns. So it's not that each one of these has their own company. This is a big mistake that I see people kind of lean into. It's that one company can own many different trademarks and brand names that are public facing. They don't have a DBA for each of these brand names, nor do they have any separate legal business LLC or entity for each of these brand names. They are simply trademarks that the brand owns. Glad we got that out of the way. Just pick whatever name you want to name your LLC. I think it is a good idea to name it something that is marginally related to what you'll be selling under, because you could have some issues later if like the credit card statement has a different name and people are like, what did I buy? I didn't buy anything from Doggy Doo Enterprises LLC. What the heck? Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that the name of your LLC doesn't really matter. So don't get too hung up on it or whether it's taken or not. Like nobody really cares what the name of an LLC is, other than if it's on a credit card statement, you haven't gone into the back end of Stripe and updated whatever you want their credit card statement to say. It'll just by default be your LLC name. And that can sometimes mess with some people's heads. Great, now that it doesn't matter what name you pick, we're gonna move on to step number 2, which is to get your employer identification or EIN number. This is something that is freely given by the IRS in the United States. I know there are other comparable alternatives in other countries, but I'm based here in the States, so sorry. If you're operating in the States, you might even pick up an EIN if you wanna have a US-based bank account, I should mention that. And now that you have your name, you go to irs.gov, you pick up your EIN, and this is your social security number of sorts. It's not actually a social security number, but it's like basically what will operate as a social security number for your business entity. So now you have the name picked out, you go to the IRS website, you get your EIN, they give you a tax ID letter, save that as a PDF. It's an important thing that your accountant will be really mad at you not speaking from experience or anything, but they might get like kind of annoyed that you don't have it and can't send it to them because you just threw it out like as soon as you got it. Save that as a PDF somewhere safe. And then you can take that tax ID letter, which has your EIN on it, and you can move on to step 3 of the process of getting a stress-free LLC. Step 3 is to go to your state's Secretary of State website. It's almost always called a Secretary of State website. If your state calls it something different, don't panic. Every state is a little bit different, but more or less, if you Google your state and then Secretary of State, you should be able to quickly and easily find what website you need to order your LLC from. This is actually a really good life hack, so I'm glad you're here. Make sure that whatever domain you land on has .gov as the domain name. So it could be whatever, georgia.gov or like georgiasos.gov, but it needs to have .gov in the URL, because if it doesn't, you are landing on someone who is about to try to scam you and rip you off because they are a fake site or source that is going to try to take your money. Why states still allow this, I don't know, but I'll also talk about one other way that people try to rip you off. Everybody gets scared by it. Don't worry, you're not going to get scared by it. Make sure you're on your official state's Secretary of State website, and you can do that by just looking for .gov. Another good idea is to always make sure that any emails that regard anything asking you for money or sensitive information or like really anything are coming from that exact domain address. So if you get a letter or an email later from someone that is like accounts at georgiallcs.com or something, like that's fake. That's not real. They make it look very official and real, but that's not real. So you always want to make sure that you're not clicking on something in that email because it looks really official and then filling something out and you've just given your sensitive information to some stranger on the internet. It's how a lot of phishing schemes get really, really smart people who are just busy. Now that you have gone to your Secretary of State's website, you'll fill out the appropriate forms, the digital forms that they have. I don't know of any that still require any physical paperwork. They don't like physical paperwork because it's more work for them. And they can usually charge you more for digital stuff anyway because it's convenient for you and you'll just eat the fee anyway. So that's what they like to do. This should be all digital and online. You can fill out the LLC application. It really is super straightforward and easy. It's just literally filling out things like your name, your business address, your name of your LLC that you already made for the EIN. Like it's so stupid and simple, and I can't believe people pay $100 to LegalZoom or whatever they charge now to get this information or to get this LLC filed, because that's just such a scam. I can't even go into that. Now that you've filed that, now that you know how easy it is to get what you need, which is your EIN and your LLC, what you'll do is you'll wait probably a week or two for this to process, and you'll get some sort of email communication. Remember to check the email address from the Secretary of State or whatever the comparable agency is in your state, and it will say, congratulations, here's your certificate of organization or certificate of formation. Every state, again, calls it something a little bit differently. Again, you'll want to save this as a PDF somewhere really important. One thing I forgot to mention earlier that could be really helpful is that you can get a business address that is not your home address, because typically when you file government paperwork like this, whether it's at the federal or state level, you will have to input your address into some sort of database. Now, these states and the federal government knows that in today's day and age, especially, we don't want our address being in some publicly searchable database. So they do allow certain things to be registered under PO boxes, but if you can find something that's more like an actual address, then a PO box, that would be even better, because a lot of places won't allow you to do a PO box either for the registration or to send actual physical mail to. I'm not going to get into all the reasons for that, but basically there's lots of options. When I moved here, my office is actually in my apartment. I just got a bigger apartment so that I could make one of the rooms my office. And so what I did, because I don't want to give out my home address to people, is I went online and I found a virtual post office. and a virtual mailbox is what it's called. So this virtual mailbox collects my mail for a fee every month and then sends it to me, and I get to use that address as my mailing address for my business so that I don't have to have my personal address online. Now, once you have your LLC, you want to avoid these scams one more time because they're going to keep coming after you. You'll get several official looking notices in the mail saying that you owe someone something, usually in very tiny print or somewhere in like a giant paragraph. It will say that this is not an official state communication. By law, they have to say those things. They will make it very difficult for you to read that. You're going to get this invoice in the mail. You're going to say, Christina lied to me. I'm stressed out now. She said this was going to be stress-free. Don't worry. These are scams, and they are perpetuated in almost every state. I've never not seen them. And I know that these are garbage because the state is not going to mail me anything. That was the whole point of me filing a digital application. Even if your state does mail you things, it's still a good idea to make sure that this is a legitimate thing. You never want to call or email anything on that piece of paper either, because obviously they're just going to say, yeah, we sent you an invoice and you didn't pay it. We're waiting for that check. You only want to call the actual government number that you get off of the government website. So if you call anything on that piece of paper, you're just buying into the scam. Don't do that. Go to the actual Secretary of State or the appropriate government agency that's in charge of LLCs in your state, like we just talked about, and you can call or email them and ask them. They honestly will probably send you a form email back about how this is a scam and that they know about it, but there's not anything they can do. All right, one last cool fun step that you can do with your LLCs now, because we're the contract shop, we want to see you in really good relationships and contracts with your clients. And what that means is that when it comes to signing contracts, now that you have a shiny new LLC, you can actually sign as the LLC. So if you want to see how this is done, we have a tutorial on thecontractshop.com. We'll link it up below. We also have more information about this inside our Lawless to Flawless program, which we have on special. That program also teaches you how to get all of your legal ducks in a row, not just an LLC, because there's a couple things you need to take care of as you're starting out, or if you started a while ago and just forgot, no worries. That happens. So you'll definitely want to pick up Lawless to Flawless if you feel like that is a good fit for you. If you just want to make sure that you have dotted all your I's, crossed all your T's, it's a great resource for you to have in your back pocket that you and your virtual assistants or anybody else that's helping you in your business could go through with you. Just to wrap up and review, the first step that you're going to do to have a stress-free LLC is select a name and not worry about it, because you can have plenty of trademarks for all of your coaching programs, courses, digital products, whatever might come down the line for you. You can have those as your trademarks and brand names, not the name of your LLC. The LLC name really doesn't matter. The second thing that you'll do is get an EIN, or an employer identification number. This is like your social security number for your business, and they give it to you through your tax ID letter. You get this from irs.gov. The third thing, now that you have your EIN, you know roughly what your LLC is going to be called. You go to that governmental website, make sure .gov, G-O-V, is in the title of that URL. Enter the name of the LLC that you want and apply for that LLC registration. The next step is to make sure your LLC is properly filed. You'll know that because you'll get some sort of email and or mailed paperwork that your LLC has been properly filed and now has an entity existing in that state's database. The final step is to look out for any kind of scam mail and make sure that you are, if you would like to, signing the contracts with your clients as your new entity and not you personally. So again, if you want a tutorial on how to do that, we have that linked below on thecontractshop.com. I've really enjoyed having you here today. I hope this is enlightening. I hope it's eased some of your fears. One of the best things that we ever hear on a almost daily basis is it felt like when you did this and this training, or you did this YouTube video, or I bought this course from you, or I got this product, we always hear really nice things about how it lifted a weight off their shoulders. Like, that's the phrase that everyone seems to use. And we can't wait to do the same for you. So if you have any questions or if you had any aha moments, we'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Otherwise, just make sure you're subscribed. We'll give you really fun, awesome content that keeps building your business, but also keeps you legit. And we can't wait to see you in the next video. Take care.